Hi guys, welcome to The Identity. Thank you for tuning in. This is season 8 and we are having amazing shows lined up for you. Now, we have been having some particular episodes already going through, and if you have not watched, I'd encourage you to go to our YouTube channel and get to tune in and see our previous discussion. Today's episode, we'll be talking about PK and EK syndrome. Now, I know some of you are already acquainted to what PK and EK is. Now, to those who don't know, let me be courteous to you and explain. PK is pastor's kid. EK is elder's kid. Now, for a very long time, it has been assumed that these guys are either mischievous or too holy. And for these two particular spectrums, they're either to their worst of being evil or very good to be too holy. But in this particular episode, we'll be diving into this discussion and getting to understand what exactly this is. So I'd encourage you to be with me all through this particular episode. First of all, we'll be having a Zoom interview which I had with some PKs and EKs, so let's jump right into it. So kindly introduce yourself and tell us how you're related, how this particular topic is to you. Are you a PK, EK, or GBK?
Okay. My name is Brian Otto. Professionally, I'm a criminologist by profession. That is, and I love ministry, and I'm glad to be here today. I'm a grandchild to a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Serious shepherdess. So
I will jump quickly to ask you. What is your experience being brought up by a family which has a pastor? What's your experience? Is it pleasant? Is it a walk in the park?
I can say that it's both. Like it's both. It's not easy, neither is it hard. Depending on who your parents are and depending on their maturity in Christ, it will bring out a different experience altogether. So for my case, it wasn't. It was just more of like a balance at the end of the day. If I now look at it from my adulthood, from the position I am right now, I look at it differently. But I can say it wasn't. As well as my channel, they were almost at the same. Trying to balance it, like rather. Let me just say that.
Okay, now then, what is the biggest challenge being brought up in a PK's family?
Well, I'd say just like for any other family out there, there are always expectations. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're pastor's kid or not, but there are always expectations. Expectations are always there, regardless. But in this case, the expectations were as a child of a pastor, as one who comes from the family of a pastor, there's a certain way that you're supposed to behave. There's a certain way that you're supposed to dress. There's a certain way that the community around you, or rather the society around expects you to be. And if you do not maintain or keep up to those kinds of standards they have for you, then you are either lost, or you're a black sheep, or there's something wrong with you, or you're a sinner, things of the sort. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes, most definitely. And what was that one experience for you that put you off the title of being a PK or EK? Because I don't think you just had a walk in the park all through. Just tell me one experience to you that you'll never forget about being associated to a pastor.
Okay, there are two that I can clearly remember. No, there are three more so, but let me use the two in a quick succession. So the first one was now that because it was in class, it was something in class, and for me that was the first time I felt so bad, you know, and I didn't like it, but nevertheless, I never talked about it because I was quite a silent kind of kid, you know. So this is, we were in class, and I believe it was mathematics class, or one of either mathematics or CRE, one of them. And this was the thing. I can't remember it clearly, but if probably maybe it happened in both classes or something. That's I can remember. There was a CRE and there was maths. But this was the statement that came out from the teacher. You know, I didn't manage to get a certain mark on the exam paper. So this was the statement that, you know, you're coming from you're a pastor's kid. God is in your house, like, you know, that was the idea. You know, God should be, you're the ones who should be showing the example. How can you fail? You're supposed to be the heads and not the tails. Such kind of things. And then I was like, is it that now that I come from a pastor's kid, am I like an angel or something? Or do we have superpowers in that house? Like my grandfather just says, you are going to pass. And then like something magical just happens, and then you go to class and then you know, your grades are just like A. Yeah, that's some of the things that really put me off, and they kind of messed up my self-esteem.
Well, it's in such moment you realize, as much as Jesus is the answer, sometimes you need to read the question properly.
Exactly.
Let me ask you, no personal. The assumption that you're a pastor's kid, you're born, bred, you basically live, eat, breathe from Genesis to Revelation. Does that mean you were born saved, or have you had your own spiritual journey to actually accept God in your life?
Yeah. I don't know why most people tend to think that it's supposed to be that way, like the ideal, you're born in a pastor's house or in a servant of God's house, and then you're supposed to have this kind of perfect life. But people forget the journey. And that's something I always thank my granddad about, because he always gave us stories of himself, you know, and the paths that he had followed. So we didn't really look at him as this perfecto man, you know. We saw him as another person who was also struggling at some point. So that one kind of shaped it. But we all do have stories. There's always a journey. I mean, the Bible says that a saint falls down 7 times, but gets back up. You see, people forget the getting back up thing. You know, there's a process. You have to. Not even the characters in the Bible that we used were all perfect. Have you checked out the Hall of Faith? The Hall of Faith. People like Samson, what are they doing there? Their stories are so messed up. But they are there anyway. So we all have stories. We had a journey. I had a journey. I passed through things. I did things, and some of them they never knew them because we never talked about it anyway. So yeah, we all have journeys, and we are here today. Thank God.
What would you tell PK or EK who's struggling, or probably even a GPK who's struggling with living with this expectation and live a life that is not per se the one that the society expects of him or her? What did you tell them?
May I say, if I met Brian, if today somebody took me back in time and I met Brian, you know what I tell you? And that's the same thing I would tell them today. Look for Jesus yourself. You see, well, it's good to be told about Jesus, that's fine. But it's good to also look for him yourself. You see, it creates that relationship between you and Jesus. And you learn that, because I realize there's this problem where people most of the time people share their own convictions, and they want their own convictions to be part of your experience. Like God can tell you now, Sami Maangi, I don't want you to keep wearing suits. I need you to go and minister somewhere where suits won't really give you an advantage point. Then you now, Sami Maangi, since God has told you to stop wearing suits, now you want to be Brian or Thor to also stop wearing suits. My friend, it does not work like that. You see, that's the problem. The society has a standard. They want you to live in a certain way, forgetting that they also miss the standard. So me, I'll tell somebody out there, please be true to yourself. God did not create a human race the same way. You get, people are different, and that's what brings all this. That's what creates the differences we have. Yeah? It makes it beautiful. Accept you. If you don't like putting on official, don't squeeze yourself so much to a point you're not happy in church or you're not happy with other Christian fellows simply because of a suit. You see. And then open your mind, be open, be open. Criticism is out there. People will always have criticism. My mom used to tell me that if you cannot take criticism, then you are in for a big problem in this world, because that's the order of the day. You'll have to be criticized. So just accept it and allow it, and you know, just have your truth, base it on, if you base it on the Bible, fine. When somebody approaches you and tells you, why are you not putting on a suit? And then you'll ask them, why is the suit in the Bible? I mean, why? Official doesn't have to be a suit. You know, the open mind helps you to think wider. And when you study the word for yourself also, you have the truth in your hands. You'll be safe from those people who bring you half truths and they want you to establish them in your life. Yeah.
Even as you come to a close, kindly give your challenge to the society, which has looked at you and your kind PK, EK, GPK, GEK. What would you tell the society, about how we can best relate to you guys?
I'll tell society that God's word is about growth. Growth is something we should allow. We should let it happen. Let's not force growth on people. Yeah, there are people who crawl. There are people who begin by crawling. There are people who begin by running. There are so many people I know who, when we were young, they were the leaders of the band. You know what I mean? When we talk of pathfinders, they were the ones swinging the rod. You know, they were putting on the white gloves. You used to look at them like, oh my God, these are the guys. Yeah, you know, they were fast. But right now, things have kind of changed, you see. So society should allow people to grow in Christ, not grow because they want them to grow. If somebody has not met with Christ in that high level that you guys won't expect them to be, allow them, help them grow through that process, because it's a process at the end of the day. Society wants us to meet to attain a goal without having the experience with Jesus, you see. So at the end of the day, you'll meet the goal, you'll have all these changes in your life, you dress in a certain way, you eat in a certain way, because the society, Christians, think you need to be that way. Then you find you're empty because you don't have Jesus. He's the one who's supposed to elevate, to go with you through the process. So me, I'd tell guys, allow people to grow. Don't expect so much, because even you yourself had a growth. And if you look at yourself and see what God is doing in your life, you wouldn't pressure somebody to be whatever you are or whatever you expect them to be simply because they come from a pastor's house. Yeah, you won't pressure them. You'll understand that there's a process that they need to learn. So society, please, love of God, allow people.
have a friend who's called Peter Sitati, and one of his jokes he always makes about pastors' kids or elders' kids is you'll always know them because they have this normalcy of running right in front of the pulpit. I don't know how true that is, but in today's panel, you'll be able to understand that more. And on the panel, you have Pastor Ernest Ireri, you also have Jeremy Omari and Sarah Johnson, just to help us understand what syndrome this is. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I want to start with Jeremy. Is the stereotype true that pastors' kids and elders' kids are always, the ones who always show their horns, so to speak?
To some extent, it's true. But with the century we are living in, it's somehow being diminished.
How so?
When we were growing, there was this notion that the church compound is ours because my dad is an elder. Anytime he goes to church, I have to be close to him. I just run at the pulpit just to have some fun because the church compound is ours, because my dad is an elder. But lately, I don't know if people are becoming a bit mature. To some extent, it is cooling down.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't know if other elders' kids will agree to this. Pastor, let me come to you. You are a PK. For the ones who are watching, we'll be using initials PK meaning pastor's kids or EK meaning elders' kids. Now, Pastor, you're a PK.
Yes.
How was it growing up for you?
Wow. I would say it was a privilege.
It was a privilege?
Yeah, to me.
Okay.
Growing up in a pastoral family, I had the advantage of moving closer to every other county within our country. His daddy used to go for transfer here and there. That was my best thing about it.
Wow.
And that also gave me an opportunity also to grow in diverse cultures, to speak a number of languages. Almost every district we went, I speak that language.
How many languages do you speak by now?
About 6.
6?
Yes.
Wow.
Including Sukuma. That is a Tanzanian language. So I would say to me it was a privilege, and it has been up to now. I cannot regret.
Now, one thing I find interesting with you is that your father was a pastor. You are also a pastor. We'll be able to review that. But one thing, before we start going to the wayward side, are there advantages of being a PK or an EK? Let me start with you, Sarah.
In a kid's perspective, yeah, when you are a kid, they view you as someone, not bigger, but with some power-ish. To a kid, when your father is the one who's speaking in the pulpit all the time, your father is the one who's giving other people the directions to do everything, you take it as if your father is the president to the church. So you use that power to get things as a kid, but when you grow up to a teenager or teenage years, it doesn't have that value anymore. But to a kid, yeah, it was so advantageous.
Jeremy, was it of any advantages to you?
Honestly, it was not.
How so?
Any small mistake you do, you're dead. So you can feel how stressful it was. That's when you're growing. But when you're young, it was just, as she said, it was just something you feel.
You're still an elder's kid.
Honestly, yes, yeah.
It's still, the experience is still the same.
I'm one noisy guy, so I don't feel the effect to some extent because, okay, my dad is in Migori, I'm in Nairobi. So there's no follow-up. You are not being followed like like being monitored.
Okay.
But if in case I was at home, any mistake I do, yule mtoto wa elder.
Sarah, you want to jump in?
Yeah, as right now, me being an elder's kid now as an adult, it's more hard because the stereotype yenye watu wamekuwekea is that as the elder's kid or as the pastor's kid, haufai kufanya makosa, you are not supposed to go to the wrong. So you sleep, that small mistake wanaanza kusema sasa ule mtoto wa elder yeye ni mtoto wa elder, mbona anafanya hivi, as in they don't view you as the normal Christian, as in you are an individual, not your father's kid, as in you don't carry his umbrella. You can fall into sin, you can sleep, you can backslide and come back, but when you make a mistake wanakuibeba nayo with your father's name, as in sasa yeye ni mtoto wa elder, mbona amefanya hivi. It's nagging, it's annoying.
Pastor, let me come to you. Yes. PK, let me come to you. What do people get wrong when it comes to dealing with PKs and DKs? What do people get wrong?
I would say first, it is the expectation they have of us. Many a times, because you are in that first family in the church, either a pastor's family or an elder's family, there is that huge expectation people expect. When your daddy stands in at the pulpit, they expect to see now the reality of that message in my life as a PK, in my life as an elder's kid. So that being under everyday public scrutiny and display every other time, that is where I think people get it wrong. Because a PK to me is a child like any other, first and foremost. They are being brought up in a family. But because of the role that my father as an elder, my father as a pastor has taken, now I am expected to behave in that given kind of demeanor in a way. And I think that is where we get it all wrong.
Now, also new, unfortunately, I don't know how true this is, but in every church, again, I cannot verify these statistics, but it's just from the few churches I've gone to. You'll always find that elder who was a wayward child, either all or some or one. Why so?
Wow. I'll first and say.
And the reason why I'm asking you this is because you've interacted with very many PKs and EKs. So why so?
Well, see, it is true that happens. I actually am currently the president for our association within our conference. And when I look around with my peers and my fellow PKs, you can say in the affirmative that that happens. But I will not go into zooming around and say maybe in a family that has 5 children, I think 3 or there's at least a minimum of 1, because that's the same thing that happens with every other family out there. The only difference with the family of an EK and a PK is that it is on display. It is what you may call a house on a glass. They are there because of the role my father is doing. They expect whatever he stands at the pulpit and does, that is theory. The practical application of that message should be seen in me, in shepherdesses, in pastors' children, in elders' children. So out of that zooming in, because simply they are the first family in the church, that is where they will begin now to say there is one person in there, there are 2 people who are not living according to that ministry. To me, yes, it is there. But it is just like every other family also. So
we're not supposed to glorify you because you're an EK or PK. You're just like any other kid.
I would say yes and no.
Okay.
Why I would say yes is because we are just children, like any other child. A pastor cannot give birth to a small pastor. Yes, there is that environment, mandhari ambayo mtoto amelelewa. There's that environment where you bring them up. They have the advantage of a spiritual heritage that they should carry, because the father has been into religious environment and themes and the like. But the no I would say here is, just as we have been in a family that has that heavy religious heritage, much is also expected of us. Just like the Bible says, whoever much is given, that is Luke 12:48, much is expected. Because of growing up in that environment where the Bible is all we do. Before breakfast, there's a verse that goes with that particular breakfast that we are eating. At lunch hour, there's another one. In the evening, before we sleep, we have to kneel down for many hours. Then it should be that much that we've received in matters of spiritual and biblical heritage, much is expected outside there. So the answer, that's why I said it could be a yes, because we are like any other child, any other family member growing within a family. And a no, because besides other people, you have been brought up in a different way. The spiritual background is higher than every other place, and so much will be expected of you.
Just like when you apply for a CV, or rather when you apply for a job, then you hear, when you have something, it's an added advantage.
That is it.
Let me come to you, Jerry. What's your worst experience what has been your worst experience just being an EK?
Are you sure you want to hear about it?
Pretty much, yes.
I was in high school, so students were sent home for free. I remained with a very close friend, who is still a very close friend to me up to now. So we were bored up. We remained only 2 guys in class. So we took a cup and started playing volleyball with the trash. So the class teacher caught us. We were sent home. So reaching home, people started talking that you have been suspended. I don't know who spread it out. So in church, I'm hearing, mtoto Helenani, you know, I'm the firstborn, and the how they call our parents, they call like your dad with the firstborn's name. Mtoto wa baba Jeremy amefukuzwa shule. Amefukuzwa. There are no things he has been suspended. He has been chased away from school. So it really hit me. I was asking myself, is it a sin being an eldest kid? Because you're being looked like a mirror. So it really hit me seriously. It looks light, but by then it was seriously heavy. So I decided to go under the porridge like chini ya maji to save myself from the... Okay, let me say this. Us who've been raised in a church where there's a tribe that dominates, it's weighty. Because you're being looked like you should not mess up on anything. Because if you mess up, what passes through a woman's mouth goes fast. Especially from a particular tribe, which I am, but I don't want to mention.
You don't know that.
Yeah, you understand me. So it rained so fast until it became traumatizing to me. So after some time, we had to shift from that church to another church because
of rumors.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know the parents. I found it a little bit funny when kids were sent for school fees. And you were sent for something else, but...
I had not to stay in school.
Okay, now let me come to you, Sarah.
Yeah.
How do you think being an EK, how does it affect you socially, personally?
To my experience, it will be growing up before we changed churches. Ilikuwa standard yenye nakuwa brought up to, as in people looking out, unafanya hivi, hivyo ndio mtoto elder anafaa kufanya, hivyo ndio mtoto elder anafaa, as in hao ndio mtoto elder anafaa kutembea nao, as in they hold you to that level of you are an elder's kid, you should not be late, you should not do this, you should not do that, you should not walk with him. Alafu, us growing up, hii stereotype ya kutembea wasichana na vijana, it was not there. So if your friend group is built up with both genders, inakuwa mtoto wa elder anafanya nini na wale wa vijana, ama mtoto wa elder anaenda wapi na wale vijana. So it's more of wanakuona like you are a socialite in the church environment. So you fall inakuwa so broadcasted that uko like, if I was just another kid, if I was just a Christian's kid, nini inge happen? As in, will they backlash that much? But growing up, it was that hard. But then unapelekwa boarding, ukitoka boarding, ukirudi, the environment changes due to change churches. So my current church right now, sina that much light to me being an elder's kid.
In a nutshell, we can also say that being an EK or PK pretty much deprives, rather dictates your social life. And you don't have much control to it.
Yeah.
But Pastor, why does it look hard for you guys, PKs and EKs, to find your own identity? And why does it look like it's hard for you guys to grow spiritually? Because sorry to compare. It may look like the guys who are not EKs and PKs have that thirst and yearn to know. But you guys who are privileged, who have an added advantage, are laid back. What does it look like so?
Yeah, quite a question. I would say, one, it's because of what we said earlier about display. You see, when people are already putting a parameter on where you need to operate, you may not even want to grow by yourself. You're not even becoming real because somebody out there is watching. When a normal child wakes up in the morning, dresses in jeans, and just look at those faded jeans that have tumashima huku, you can walk around and nobody will say anything. You are trying your way. And as you go out, you will realize that I think this is not what the Lord expects of me as an Adventist young man. I need to show that there is a difference between me and the people I live around with. I'll come back and change. That's a normal person. But for me as a PK, the mere fact of me dressing like that and going outside of the door, every other person is saying, oh, look at that. So that will make me not to grow in the way I should have grown before. My brother here said something about the expectation even in high school. When I was growing up in both primary and high school, there was another name I used to be called. Everybody is looking at me whenever there is an issue like that has to go into the Bible or they need a prayer. They will now begin to look for me. Where's Pastor? And I'm wondering, Pastor. So they are giving me such a title because of even what they expect me to do. And it was known that a PK or an elder's kid should not be late to class. Every other person is getting late, but within a group of 10 people who are latecomers, you are getting late and you are a pastor as well. Even you. You go again, you do not perform very well. Like some of the subjects that earlier in the course of high school, we even wanted to leave those subjects and leave like chemistry. You are told, even you are failing chemistry. And the teacher will make fun of you. I'm going to send you from this class, you go to your father to pray for you. Why? Because now you're being zoomed out, you are a PK. So when that pressure is there, for sure you cannot grow. Because it's like you have to live a lie. You have to live a life of how others want you to behave. You are in charge. You cannot even express yourself like any other child. You want to keep quiet because people are saying, no, remember you are a pastor's kid. So they need to see a small pastorhood within you at that given moment. With such expectations and the pressure from outside, you may not grow. But I will say, that is there for the average person, for many people. But I want to thank the Lord that there are always some remnants. A few PKs who will still rise up and a few EKs that will still rise up and be whom they are. Have humor. Live their life without having to worry about what others say.
Now, Jerry, there's someone who's struggling being an EK and PK. What would you tell them, even as they struggle to find an identity of their own?
You know, one thing I've come to realize, for the EKs and PKs, they take time to realize themselves because it's so strict on them. We are raised in a situation that you have to do what your parents tell you. But when you get a little freedom, most of them just strike out and
they have their own path.
Yeah, they get their own path that you cannot even realize if they're PKs and DKs. One thing I like to advise them, realize yourself. We live in a world that when you try to, our parents, some of them, I love my parents because we are free, we talk so freely. But there are some parents that you cannot tell them anything. If you've had the anything, it's in London, you cannot tell them anything at all. Because if you try to tell them this way, they want it to happen this way. So it's high time that you first make your parents understand, like have a free talk with your parents. Because most EKs and PKs, I think you can confirm this, there's that fear when you grow. There's that fear to express yourself to your parents. Because if I express myself this way, kitaumana. So let's bring a norm of being free with our parents as we grow, so that when anything happens, para najua alishaniambia, ama we had discussed about this and we agreed. Because I'm very sure each and every parent would like to listen to his or her kid. Like what is in my child's mind? What is he planning? What is he thinking? if we create that environment of a free space to speak out your mind and your parents to tell them their mind so that you can come to a consensus that this is the right way to go, everything will be okay.
You know, there's something that you've said, and I'd like to pick it up. And one thing I've realized, sometimes, and I could be wrong, you can correct me, EKs and PKs grow in a space where they already have a huge umbrella covering them, that it's hard for them to have their own identity because they live in a shadow of someone. You know, if your father is a pastor, there's that huge shadow created. In fact, when someone sees you, it doesn't see like you, it really sees your father first, then you. Of which I think it's something that we should actually change our mindset from it. And I'd like to give you, Sarah, you want to jump in?
No, finish.
So there's something that we should learn to look at everyone, not just speakers and kids, everyone individually, and not put that because Sami Mangi is then that means the whole family is like that. And we should I think that's something that we should also learn to extend grace. If someone is, if Jeremy is behaving wayward, it's not his father. Let's extend grace for him to make. There's a song that I like. I'm not sure. I don't know. It says when I was a young child, I played like a child. But now that I'm grown, you know. So let's give everyone that bubble of growth, and let's extend the grace. Sarah, I'd like to give you a hard task a little bit. There's a pastor somewhere, there's an elder somewhere who doesn't know of this. Imagining you are their daughter, what would you tell them? Straight to the camera.
To that, let me put it in this way. If I was talking to my father, growing up, my father has been a first elder since I was 7. Probably before I was 7, because we changed churches. He was a first elder when I was a kid. Then we moved churches. He was another first elder. To him, I can't say he was married to the church, but him being a first elder, he was not around so much. So us talking and making it a family thing, as conversing, and it was not a thing. So to that parent, to that elder, to that pastor, try one day when you come back home, that time when you do your devotion. Unajua tukifanyanga zile devotions at home, zinakuanga mnaomba, anasoma verse, ama wendo unasoma verse, then mnaomba, mnaenda mnalala. Make it a family meeting. Talk, listen to that kid, akuambie how that day was. Juu right now siwezi kaa chini nianze kuambia mzazi wangu how this happened to me. I met this person yesterday. He did this and this. Itakuwa easier for me to talk to someone else because that environment was never there. So try to create that conversational environment with your kids. Try to make them feel that saizi tukiwa hapa kwa hii nyumba unaweza ongea na mimi, niambie shida yako ni nini, niambie watoto wengine wanakuona aje as a kid of the pastor, as the kid of the elder, watoto wengine wanakuview aje, nikuambie, so that you help me. Juu akisimama mbele ya pulpit, he converses with the crowd, anawapea good advices. But then sisi kwa nyumba hatuna hiyo environment, hatuongei pamoja. So that thing you portray in the pulpit, that thing you portray in family life meetings, try to bring it back to the house, try to make it in your nuclear around. Yeah.
Pastor.
Yes.
What would you tell that PK, even as they struggle to deal with all this judgment and expectations, even as we come to close?
You also want me to look at the camera?
Feel free.
Very nice. I would say this, and I'm happy my sister is saying it, that at least it's good for us to create that environment. Let me remember, as a parent, that my son, my daughter, even if they are within a pastoral or an elder's family, they are also struggling with a few issues in there. Someone might be trying to overcome things like pornography. But because you are within such a religious, highly religious environment, you may not even want to share it with your father. And your father can't even listen. What are you saying? My son doing some of those things, yet there are challenges affecting other young people out there. For the parents watching me, I think this is the time to allow some of this conversation, because your child may be struggling with things that are being challenges out there. But to me now, to the PK and the EK over there watching, In as much as, yes, we have this expectation, we are a house on a display, and people are giving us this pressure, let's also remember that the fact that we were born in those families, much is expected of us. And that means we have also, by default, are part of the call that was given to our parents. If they are pastors, as the PK, you are part of that call. As an elder's child, you are also part of that call. And how you behave, how you live your life, whether outside of the family or within the family, affects the ministry of your parents. You have the capacity either to impede that ministry or to make it a blessing, to foster it. So just live your life, yes, but remember, you can either become a blessing into the ministry of your parent as an elder or as a pastor.
Listening to this as a Christian, I'm also reminded that the same lens that we give to PKs and EKs is the same lens that is given to us as Christians. Just because you're a Christian, you're also raised. Just because you're a Christian and you profess of the faith, you also looked at that with the world. The same lens we give to the PKs and EKs is the same lens the world gives, that the world looks at us. If anything, let's strive better and be better. And for the PKs and EKs who are struggling, we can offer a helping hand to them so that they can grow even stronger in their faith. And we don't have to isolate them. If anything, let's integrate them and let their issues be our issues. Let us create an environment where we do not stereotype, isolate, and then discriminate. If anything, let's integrate. And I strongly believe there's much to learn from these guys, the PKs and DKs, and there's much that we can share and we can grow together, because the journey to heaven is hard and the struggle is real. Thank you for watching.